So this connects to very strongly to idea 4, which is that the Corona Recession is a mild preview of the Green New Deal. One way to think about what's going on is that your ability to be productive is being restricted by indefinite universal isolation. It's a fundamental restriction on the ability of millions of people to be productive because social interaction is so crucial to the kind of value that they create. It's certainly true with some of the stuff we do, like speaking at events. I think we create a lot of value by speaking at live events, but if there are no live events with speakers, then we can't create that kind of value. And there's certain kinds of consulting that work much better in person. And so to some extent, at least we're restricted in creating that kind of value. And then you think of people in service industries, and then it's just totally gutted. So, and that's really what it's the lack of productive ability or the decline in productive ability that's so devastating, because somebody then to consume value, you need to produce value. So you need to produce value so that you can have a home to live in. But if you can't produce value, then you can get kicked out of your home and then be in much more danger, by the way, from coronavirus or anything else. Or if you don't create enough value, then you can't have food, or you can't have as high quality food, and you can't have as high quality clothing. And then there's the whole issue of medical care, and then all sorts of expenses to enjoy your life. So just as the corona crackdown is this indefinite universal isolation is making us less productive, as Stefan mentioned, there's somewhat of a temporary dimension to this. Whereas if you permanently and fundamentally gut our energy economy, our ability to produce energy, if you force us to produce energy using processes that are far, far more costly, then that means that every instance of machine power is more costly. And that means that fewer people can afford it. And you can think of a couple of instances of this. There's three main ways in which low-cost energy benefits you, and then where higher-cost energy harms you. So the most direct is the most obvious, although we're not even taught to think of this, but it's just any direct use of machines that you have. So you can think of, you're using your computer, and that includes using energy on the cloud, which is often much greater than your computer, but using your washing machine, using your vacuum cleaner, using your lights, using your automobile, heating your home, cooling your home. Like all of these are, direct uses of machines. And so when the cost of those go up, then the affordability of them goes down. And certain of them, if you're on any kind of normal budget, you have to do without them. But it's not just the direct uses of energy, it's the indirect uses of energy, which is number 2, which is, so that is not the machine power you're directly using, but the machine power that goes into everything you're using, including the machines, but including the non-machines. So if I take the home that I live in, all of this was produced by machine power, and that made it a lot lower cost because it took a lot less human time than if it hadn't been produced using machine power. And so that would mean I couldn't afford as nice a home, and I couldn't have the furniture, and I couldn't have the carpet, and all of these things would just be far higher cost. So everything, it's not just everything that uses machine power that becomes more expensive, but it's that everything that is produced using machine power becomes more expensive. And then related to that, number 3 is that the lower cost machine power is, the lower cost everything is, and that ultimately means the more time you have that's free to do what you choose with. And that's just a huge thing where the more machine power we have, the lower cost it is, the less of a manual labor life that we have to live, and the more we can do other things, including, as I mentioned earlier, engage in medical care. And then there are all sorts of recreational activities, and you can choose jobs that you want to have that don't involve a lot of manual labor, but they involve a lot of mental labor. So the whole freeing up of human time depends on low-cost, reliable energy, which is overwhelmingly, which nothing is still close to fossil fuels in providing. So something like a Green New Deal, by making energy far less reliable and far higher cost, what it means is that all of your direct uses of machines become more expensive, but really everything that you do becomes more expensive, which means that you and everyone else have less time everyone is doing more manual labor, which means that they can be less productive and have less time to enjoy themselves. And this is what you see in poor countries, where what's going on? They're not using much machine power themselves. Not much machine power is going into producing the things they use. And guess what? Huge amounts of their time are spent on the basics like food, water, even the crudest shelter. And you see this whenever you have a productivity decline. These are the dynamics. You can produce less and you're more manual labor. So if you take like Venezuela, what's happening? There are a bunch of different dynamics, but ultimately people are becoming less productive, so their lives get worse and they're more of manual labor lives. And so that happens when you increase the cost of energy, and it happens when you decrease the freedom to socially interact. All of these are fundamental attacks on our productive ability, and thus they're fundamental attacks on our ability to flourish. If you're suffering right now, then and you feel like, wow, I cannot do as much either because I can't afford as much, or even I'm not allowed to do it, really think about, okay, this is a regression, and this is exactly the kind of regression that the Green New Deal would get us by forcing us to use unreliable, high-cost energy. Anything you guys want to add about this?
Yeah, I mean, one point to make is, so I think some of the advocates of the Green New Deal and the environmental movement more broadly, it's not just that their policies have these consequences, it's that it's part of the goal. So but they'll often put it as, we're for a no growth economy, and that they'll equate that with a sustainable economy. But I think part of the preview of the Green New Deal that we get here is that there is no such thing as a stagnating no growth economy. You have progress or you have regress, and regress happens very quickly and can get very bad because of just the way the nature of an economy works. You can't slow it down like it's, like a train or something like that. It's all the pieces need to be working together and moving forward, or it's more like sticking a wrench in the gears of a clock. And so that's what I think should be really terrifying about the Green New Deals, that you're not talking about lower growth or even no growth with people just living the same lifestyle that they are this year for 20 years. It's that you get decline, and that I think you can get it very, very fast.
And one thing there is just, there's a lot more to say about this, but the basic assumption behind growth is illusory or it's unsustainable. At least one of the basic assumptions is, well, the world has finite resources, and therefore they were just inevitably heading toward a train wreck. And one point I make, and I'll make now, is just that the ability, resources are potentially unlimited, because we create resources by intelligently reshaping raw matter and energy, and the world is just an effectively unlimited amount of raw matter and energy. So there's no limit to how much we can grow, and we should hope and expect that future generations will see us, even the wealthier ones among us, as quite poor.